Imagine standing here 1,000 years ago. The air is thick, humid, carrying the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. It's a moonless night in the Mississippi bottomlands, and the world is wrapped in a profound, almost sacred, quiet. The only sounds are the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. But as your eyes adjust to the darkness, you see it, rising from the flat floodplain like a sleeping giant, a massive silhouette against a star-dusted sky. This isn't just a hill. It's Monks Mound, the heart of a bustling metropolis that once thrived right here, in what is now southern Illinois. Welcome to Cahokia. Long before European ships ever touched the shores of the Americas, this was the largest and most sophisticated city north of Mexico. At its peak, around the year 1100, Cahokia was bigger than London was at the time. Tens of thousands of people lived here, in a sprawling urban center that covered nearly 6 square miles. It was a city of monumental earthworks, vast plazas, and a complex society that we are only just beginning to understand. This was the capital of the Mississippian culture, a network of communities that flourished across the Midwest and Southeast for centuries. They were master farmers, cultivating corn, beans, and squash in the fertile river valley. They were incredible engineers, moving millions of cubic feet of earth by hand, basket by basket, to construct over 120 mounds of various sizes and functions. They were astronomers, aligning their city with the cosmos, tracking the sun and stars to mark the seasons. And they were artists, creating intricate pottery, delicate shell carvings, and copper work that speaks to a rich spiritual life. But here's the great enigma of Cahokia. By the time Columbus arrived, the city was all but empty. Gone, vanished. What happened to the tens of thousands of people who've called this vibrant city home? Why did they abandon their grand plazas, their sacred mounds, their very way of life? There are no written records, no grand sagas carved in stone to tell us their story. All we have are the silent mounds and the artifacts buried within the soil. This is what makes Cahokia so endlessly fascinating. It's a ghost city, a puzzle box of history waiting to be unlocked. The clues are scattered, whispering of immense power, deep faith, and an eventual, mysterious collapse. Was it climate change? Was it warfare? Disease? Social upheaval? Or was it something else entirely? A reason so profound that it led an entire civilization to simply walk away. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of time, starting right here, under the watchful gaze of Monks Mound. This isn't just a tour of an archaeological site. This is a journey into the heart of a lost American civilization, a civilization that built a city to rival any in the world, only to have it reclaimed by the very nature it sought to tame. Think about the sheer human effort it took. Imagine thousands of people, day after day, year after year, carrying baskets of soil on their backs. They weren't just building mounds. They were shaping their world, creating a sacred landscape that mirrored their beliefs. Monks Mound alone is a testament to this. It's larger at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. It took an estimated 22 million cubic feet of earth to build, a project that likely spanned generations. And it wasn't the only one. The city was a carefully planned grid, with smaller mounds, a massive central plaza, and even a huge defensive wall made of wooden palisades. This plaza, just south of Monks Mound, was the size of 45 football fields. It was the center of public life, a place for markets, ceremonies, and games. Imagine it teeming with people, the air filled with the sounds of commerce, ritual, and daily life. Archaeologists have found evidence of grand feasts, suggesting the leaders of Cahokia knew how to throw a party and project their power. They've also found evidence of a game called Chunky, where players would roll a stone disc and throw spears to see who could land closest to where the stone stopped. This wasn't just a sport. It was a high-stakes event, often with deep social and political implications. The society itself was highly structured. At the top was a paramount chief, a ruler who likely held both political and religious authority. This leader probably lived atop Monks Mound, in a large wooden structure, physically elevated above the rest of the population, closer to the sun and the gods. Below were the elites, priests, and nobles, and then the commoners, the farmers, craftsmen, and laborers, who were the backbone of the city. This hierarchy is reflected in the burials found at the site. Some are simple graves, while others are incredibly elaborate. One of the most famous is Mound 72. It's not one of the largest mounds, but what was found inside is staggering. It holds the burial of a Haisattus man, likely one of Cahokia's rulers, laid on a bed of over 20,000 marine shell beads arranged in the shape of a falcon. The falcon was a powerful symbol in Mississippian cosmology, representing the sky world, but he wasn't alone. Buried with him and around him were over 250 other individuals. Many appeared to have been sacrificial victims, young women buried in mass graves, and others who were clearly executed. It is a dark and complex discovery that points to a society with immense power and a belief system that demanded the ultimate price from its people. What kind of world did these people inhabit? Their lives were tied to the rhythm of the river, the sun, and the seasons. They watched the sky intently. They built a series of large wooden posts in perfect circles, what we now call woodhenge. These weren't for defense. They were solar calendars. From the center post, a priest or astronomer could watch the sunrise on the solstices, marking the changing of the seasons and signaling the time for planting and harvesting. It was a way of bringing order to the universe, of connecting the earthly realm with the celestial one. And yet, for all its power, planning, and cosmic alignment, it couldn't last. Around the year 1200, things began to change. Evidence suggests the city was becoming overcrowded. Resources may have been stretched thin. Deforestation in the surrounding area could have led to increased flooding and soil erosion. There are also signs of conflict. The massive palisade wall was rebuilt multiple times, suggesting a constant threat from outside, or perhaps even from within. By 1350, Cahokia was a ghost town. The plazas were empty. The hearths were cold. The great city on the Mississippi had fallen silent. The people didn't just disappear, of course. They likely dispersed, migrating to other areas, their descendants becoming the tribes that Europeans would later encounter, like the Osage, the Omaha, and many others. But the memory of their great city, the central hub of their world, faded into legend and was eventually lost to time. For centuries, the mounds were just mysterious bumps on the landscape. Early American settlers thought they were natural hills or the work of some lost race of mound builders, refusing to believe that the ancestors of the Native Americans they knew could have created something so monumental. It took decades of painstaking archaeology to prove them wrong, and to begin piecing together the true story of Cahokia. And that story is still being written. Every excavation, every new technology gives us another piece of the puzzle. Ground-penetrating radar is revealing structures we never knew existed, hidden beneath the soil. Analyses of ancient pollen and residues on pottery tells us what they ate and drank. Isotopic analysis of human remains can even tell us where people grew up, revealing that Cahokia was a cosmopolitan center that drew people from hundreds of miles away. So as we stand here in the quiet darkness, looking up at the faint outline of Monks Mound, we're not just looking at a pile of dirt. We're looking at a monument to a forgotten American empire. A city built by hand and powered by faith, a place of immense creativity and brutal sacrifice, and a profound mystery that challenges our very understanding of the history of this continent. What drove them to build this, and what drove them to leave? The answers are still out there, buried in the earth, waiting for us to find them. Join us as we dig deeper into the rise and fall of Cahokia. We'll explore the engineering marvels, the spiritual beliefs, and the leading theories behind its ultimate abandonment. This is more than just history. It's a story about ambition, power, and the fragility of civilization itself. Thank you for watching, and if you're as fascinated by this lost world as we are, make sure to subscribe and follow along on this journey. Welcome back to our series on the lost city of Cahokia. In our last episode, we marveled at its sheer scale, but it leaves us with a burning question. Why here? What was it about this specific patch of land in what is now Illinois that allowed such a monumental city to rise from the earth? The answer, as it so often is in history, lies in geography. Today, we're diving into the unique environmental advantages that made Cahokia possible. It wasn't an accident. It was a masterstroke of location. 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 Imagine standing on a high point 1,000 years ago, looking out over the landscape. What you'd see isn't just a random stretch of wilderness. You'd be at the heart of a continental crossroads, a superhighway of rivers. The mighty Mississippi River, the lifeblood of North America, flows right past. But that's not all. Just to the north, the powerful Missouri River, the longest in the continent, pours into the Mississippi. And from the northeast, the Illinois River adds its own vital current to this confluence. This wasn't just a meeting of three rivers. It was the convergence of three massive trade and travel networks. Think of it like a modern city, built at the intersection of three major interstates. It was the perfect spot to control movement, information, and goods across a vast territory. From the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, from the Appalachians to the Rockies, all routes seemed to lead to Cahokia. This strategic position gave its people unparalleled access to distant resources and cultures, making it a natural center for commerce and power. It was the geographic jackpot. But a great location for trade is useless if you can't feed your people. And this is where Cahokia's location truly shines. The area where these rivers meet is called the American Bottom. This isn't just any floodplain. It's one of the most expansive and fertile floodplains in all of North America. For centuries, these rivers had been depositing rich, nutrient-dense silt, creating soil that was almost unbelievably productive. Every time the rivers flooded, they left behind a fresh layer of this natural fertilizer. It was a self-renewing, agricultural paradise. The people of Cahokia didn't need complex irrigation systems or artificial fertilizers. They simply had to plant their crops in this incredible soil, and nature would do the rest. This agricultural abundance was the engine that powered the city. It allowed them to produce massive food surpluses, which is the absolute prerequisite for any large, complex society. Without surplus food, you can't have specialized laborers, you can't have priests, you can't have chiefs, and you certainly can't build giant earthen mounds. The fertile American Bottom was the foundation upon which the entire civilization of Cahokia was built. So what were they growing in this amazing soil? The star of the show was maize, or what we call corn. But this wasn't just any corn. Around the year 900 AD, a new, highly productive variety of maize, known as Eastern Flint corn, was introduced to the region. This new strain was it matured faster, had larger ears, and was more resilient than previous varieties. It was the superfood that fueled Cahokia's population boom. Alongside maize, they cultivated other essential crops, part of what's known as the Three Sisters of Native American agriculture. They grew beans, which climbed the corn stalks, and squash, whose broad leaves covered the ground, preventing weeds and conserving moisture. This brilliant, symbiotic planting system maximized the yield from every plot of land. They also grew other plants like sunflowers for their oil-rich seeds, and various gourds, which they used as containers and tools. This diverse agricultural base ensured a stable and nutritious food supply, capable of supporting the tens of thousands of people who called Cahokia home. It was a sophisticated and sustainable farming system that was perfectly adapted to their environment. But farming wasn't the only source of food. The rivers and the surrounding landscape were a massive living pantry. The Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers teemed with fish, catfish, bass, drum, and more. The backwater lakes and marshes, created by the shifting river channels, were prime habitats for waterfowl. Flocks of ducks and geese would migrate through the area in astonishing numbers, providing a reliable source of protein. The forests that bordered the floodplain were full of game. White-tailed deer were abundant and a primary source of meat, hides for clothing, and bones for tools. They also hunted smaller animals like raccoons and turkeys, and they didn't forget the plant life. The woodlands and prairies offered a bounty of wild foods. They gathered nuts like hickory and pecans, which were rich in fats and proteins, as well as a wide variety of berries, fruits, and edible roots. This combination of agriculture, fishing, hunting, and gathering created an incredibly resilient food system. If one source failed, there were always others to fall back on. This diversity of resources meant that Cahokia was not just surviving, it was thriving. The final piece of this geographic puzzle is the climate. The American Bottom enjoys a relatively long growing season, with mild winters and warm, wet summers. This temperate climate was ideal for their maize-based agriculture, allowing for reliable harvests year after year. It was a sweet spot far enough south to avoid the harsh, crop-killing winters of the northern plains, but far enough north to avoid the oppressive, year-round heat of the deep south. This favorable climate, combined with a fertile soil and abundant water, created a perfect storm of conditions for a city to flourish. They weren't battling the elements were working with them. This climatic advantage reduced the risk of catastrophic crop failures and allowed for the long-term planning necessary to build and sustain a city of this magnitude. Think about it. A strategic crossroads of rivers, incredibly fertile soil, a revolutionary new crop, an abundance of wild food, and a perfect climate. It is hard to imagine a better place in all of North America for a great city to emerge. The geography wasn't just a backdrop for the story of Cahokia. It was a central character, shaping its destiny and enabling its incredible rise. So, when we look at the great mountains and the sprawling plaza of Cahokia, we're not just seeing the work of human hands. We're seeing the result of a perfect synergy between people and their environment. The Mississippians who built this city were brilliant observers of their world. They understood the rhythms of the rivers, the richness of the soil, and the bounty of the land. They took the incredible natural advantages they were given and, through ingenuity and hard work, transformed this landscape into the largest and most influential city of its time in North America. The geography didn't determine their success, but it gave them a golden opportunity, an advantage that no other location could offer, and they seized that opportunity with both hands. In our next chapter, we'll explore the people themselves. Who were they? How was their society structured, from the farmers in the fields to the powerful elites who lived atop the mounds? The story of Cahokia is just getting started. Thanks for watching. And do not forget to subscribe so you do not miss the next part of our journey into America's forgotten metropolis. Have you ever wondered who built the incredible Monks Mound and the city of Cahokia? It wasn't aliens or a lost civilization from another continent. It was a remarkable group of Native American people we now call the Mississippians. Their story is one of innovation, social organization, and deep spiritual belief, all rooted in the fertile floodplains of the American bottom. For centuries, this land was home to various cultures, but around 800 AD, something truly special began to take shape. The people living here started cultivating a new, highly productive strain of maize, or corn. This wasn't just another crop. It was a game changer. This specific type of maize was so successful that it created something revolutionary. A massive food surplus. Imagine having so much food that not everyone needed to be a full-time farmer anymore. This surplus was the key that unlocked the rise of Cahokia. It freed up thousands of people, creating a large, available labor force. And what do you do with a massive workforce and visionary leaders? You start building. You build something monumental. So, who were these people? They were farmers, first and foremost. Their lives revolved around the agricultural cycle of planting, tending, and harvesting. They lived in rectangular, single-family homes made of wooden posts and woven walls, covered in a plaster-like dock. These homes were often arranged neatly around central plazas and smaller, local mounds. Life was communal, centered around family and clan. But to call them just farmers would be a huge understatement. The Mississippians were also brilliant engineers, architects, and city planners. The sheer scale and precision of Cahokia tell us that. Building Monks Mound alone required moving an estimated 22 million cubic feet of earth by hand, basket by basket. This wasn't a haphazard project. It was meticulously planned and executed over decades, likely even centuries. This level of organization points to a highly structured, hierarchical society. At the top was a paramount chief, a powerful political and religious leader who likely lived atop Monks Mound, overseeing the city from a massive building. This ruler wasn't just a king. They were seen as a direct link to the cosmos, a brother to the sun, responsible for maintaining balance and ensuring the prosperity of their people. Below the chief were other elites, priests, nobles, and sub-chiefs who helped manage the city's affairs. They would have administered the collection and redistribution of food. organized labor for construction projects, and led important religious ceremonies. Then you had skilled craftspeople, potters creating intricate vessels, flint knappers making razor-sharp tools, and artisans working with rare materials like copper and shell, which were traded from hundreds, even thousands of miles away. And at the base of this society were the commoners, the farmers and laborers, whose hard work supported the entire system. They tilled the fields, hauled the dirt for the mounds, and formed the backbone of Cahokia's population. It wasn't a society of equals, but it was a society that worked, with each person playing a vital role in the city's success. Their spiritual world was as complex and layered as their society. The mounds themselves were sacred spaces, designed to bring people closer to the sky world where powerful deities resided. The Mississippians believed in a tiered universe: the underworld, the earthly world we live in, and the upper world. Their cosmology was filled with powerful beings like the thunderbird and the underwater panther, representing the constant struggle between forces of the sky and the water, of order and chaos. These beliefs were woven into their art and rituals. We see it in the designs on their pottery, the engravings on shells, and the symbolism found in burials. The famous Birdman tablet, discovered near Monks Mound, depicts a warrior chief dressed in falcon regalia. This powerful image likely represents a hero or deity, a figure embodying strength, vision, and a connection to the celestial realm. Ceremonies held on the plazas and atop the mounds would have been dramatic public spectacles, reinforcing social order and shared beliefs. Imagine the chief, adorned in feathers and copper, emerging from his temple on Monks Mound to greet the sun. His people gathered in the grand plaza below. These rituals were essential for maintaining cosmic balance and ensuring the success of the harvest, the very foundation of their existence. The agricultural surplus didn't just enable construction. It fueled every aspect of Mississippian life. It allowed for specialization, supported a complex social hierarchy, and gave them the time and resources to develop a rich ceremonial and artistic culture. It was the engine that powered the great city of Cahokia. So, when we look at Monks Mound, we're not just seeing a pile of dirt. We are seeing the incredible achievement of a deeply religious, socially organized, and agriculturally brilliant people. They were the Mississippians, the true builders of America's first city. Their legacy, written in the earth itself, continues to inspire awe and curiosity to this day. Join us next time as we explore the layout of the city and the purpose of the other mounds that dot this incredible landscape. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more chapters in the story of Cahokia. Welcome back to our journey into the heart of Cahokia. In this chapter, we stand at the foot of its most awe-inspiring creation, Monks Mound. This isn't just a hill. It's a testament to human ingenuity and communal effort. An earthen pyramid that dominated the American landscape for centuries. Today, we're going to dive deep into its colossal dimensions and try to grasp the true scale of this ancient wonder. Let's start with the most obvious feature: its height. Monks Mound rises approximately 100 feet into the sky. To put that into perspective, that's about the height of a 10-story building. Imagine standing in the flat American bottom floodplain 1,000 years ago, seeing this man-made mountain piercing the horizon. It would have been an overwhelming, powerful sight, visible for miles in every direction, a constant reminder of the spiritual and political power centered at Cahokia. But its height is only part of the story. The true immensity of Monks Mound is revealed when you consider its base. It covers a staggering 14 acres. Now, 14 acres is a hard number to visualize. So let's use some modern comparisons. Imagine a professional American football field, including the end zones. You could fit nearly 12 of them side by side on the footprint of Monks Mound, or think about a modern soccer pitch. The base of this mound is large enough to contain about 10 of those. It's an enormous piece of real estate, all meticulously shaped by human hands. One of the most famous structures in the world is the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. While Giza's pyramid is much taller, the base of Monks Mound is actually larger. That's right. The footprint of this earthen structure in North America surpasses that of the most iconic stone pyramid on Earth. This comparison isn't to diminish the wonder of Giza, but to elevate our appreciation for what was achieved right here in the Americas. One was built with massive stone blocks, the other with basket after basket of earth. But both were monumental undertakings that redefined their landscapes. The structure of Monks Mound is also incredibly complex. It wasn't just a simple, conical pile of dirt. It was a sophisticated, multi-level platform mound, featuring 4 distinct terraces. Think of it like a layered cake or a stepped pyramid. The lowest and largest terrace is at the south end, and as you ascend, you encounter smaller terraces leading to the summit. Each of these terraces likely served a specific purpose. The highest, flattest summit terrace probably held the most important building in the entire city, perhaps. The residence of the paramount chief, or a grand temple where crucial ceremonies were performed. From this vantage point, a leader could survey their entire domain, from the sprawling city plaza below to the far-off bluffs. The lower terraces might have housed other elite residences, ceremonial spaces, or guard posts. This terrace design wasn't just for show. It was a functional, architectural choice that organized space and reinforced social hierarchy. Now, for the most mind-boggling statistic of all, the construction. How did they build it? Archaeologists estimate that Monks Mound is composed of over 22 million cubic feet of earth. This earth was moved by hand, one basket at a time. The typical basket could hold about 50 to 60 pounds of soil. So we're talking about more than 20 million individual basket loads of earth. Think about the logistics of that. Thousands of people, organized and directed, digging soil from borrow pits nearby, loading it into woven baskets, carrying those heavy loads up the ever-growing slopes of the mound, dumping the soil, and tamping it down, layer by layer. And they didn't just use any dirt. The builders were expert engineers. They carefully selected different types of soil clays, silts, and sands and layered them strategically to ensure proper drainage and structural stability. This prevented the mound from simply washing away in the rain or collapsing under its own immense weight. This was a project that likely spanned generations, a continuous effort of communal labor that bound the society together. Every basket of earth represented a person's energy, a moment of their life dedicated to creating this monumental structure. It wasn't built by slaves or a coerced workforce in the way we often imagine ancient mega-projects. This was likely a voluntary, civic, and religious duty, a contribution to the spiritual and social well-being of the entire community. When you put all of this together, the 10-story height, the 14-acre base, larger than Gizeh's, the complex four-terraced design, and the 20 million baskets of earth, you begin to understand why Monks Mound is so significant. It is, without a doubt, the largest prehistoric human-made earthen structure in all of the Americas, North and South. For its time, it was one of the largest man-made structures of any kind in the world. Standing on top of Monks Mound today, you can still feel that sense of scale. The modern world encroaches, with highways and the St. Louis skyline in the distance. But for a moment, if you let that fade away, you can imagine the bustling city that once surrounded you. The grand plaza teeming with people, the smoke rising from thousands of homes, the shimmering surface of the Mississippi River in the distance. You're standing on a monument built not of stone, but of earth, community, and belief. It's a pyramid of soil, a testament to a civilization that, for a time, was the most powerful and sophisticated in North America. The sheer scale of Monks Mound forces us to reconsider our perceptions of pre-Columbian societies. This was not the work of small, scattered tribes. This was the work of a complex, organized, and powerful urban center with a shared vision and the ability to mobilize thousands of people for a common goal. It is a powerful symbol of what people can achieve when they work together. Thank you for joining me as we explored the incredible dimensions of Monks Mound. It has a structure that challenges the imagination and stands as a proud monument to a lost American civilization. In our next chapter, we'll explore the great plaza that lay at its feet and the cosmic alignments that govern the city's layout. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to our series on the magnificent city of Cahokia. In today's chapter, we're diving deep into the architecture and engineering that allowed this ancient metropolis to thrive. How did a civilization without modern machinery construct such massive and enduring earthworks? The answer lies in a profound understanding of their environment and materials. A knowledge passed down meticulously through generations. The Cahokians were masters of earth. They didn't just pile dirt up, they engineered it. Imagine building something the size of Monks Mound, which is larger at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza, using nothing but woven baskets and human labor. The sheer scale is mind-boggling, but the true genius is in the details, in the very composition of the mounds themselves. Archaeological studies have revealed an incredibly sophisticated construction method. The Cahokians used a specific layering technique, almost like making a giant, multi-layered cake out of the earth itself. They would alternate different types of materials, each chosen for its unique properties. A layer of dense, heavy clay would be followed by a layer of more porous, sandy soil, then perhaps a layer mixed with ash, and then another type of soil. Why go to all this trouble? It was all about managing the one great enemy of earthen structures: water. Clay is fantastic at repelling water, creating a waterproof barrier, but on its own, it can become unstable. The alternating layers of sand and other soils were crucial for drainage. This system allowed water to seep away from the core of the mound instead of saturating it, which would have led to slumping, erosion, and eventual collapse. It was an ingenious internal drainage system built right into the structure. Think about it like this. When rain falls on an ordinary pile of dirt, it soaks in, turns to mud, and the whole thing can slide apart. But the Cahokians created a structure that actively channeled water away, preventing it from penetrating deep into the mound's core. They understood the hydrogeology of their local soils with a precision that is truly astonishing. They knew which clays were the most water-resistant and where to quarry them. They knew which sands would provide the best drainage. This wasn't guesswork, it was science. But preventing water penetration from within was only part of the solution. They also had to deal with water flowing down the steep slopes of the mounds. To combat this, they developed brilliant reinforcement techniques. On many of the mounds, we see evidence of what are called slope caps. These were thick layers of particularly dense, water-resistant clay applied to the exterior surfaces of the mound, like a final protective shell. This outer layer would shed rainwater, directing it away from the mound and preventing surface erosion from carving gullies into its sides. Furthermore, they didn't just build straight, steep slopes. The larger mounds, especially Monks Mound, were constructed with a series of terraces or setbacks. These weren't just for ceremonial purposes or to create platforms for buildings, although they served those functions too. From an engineering perspective, these terraces were critical for stability. Each terrace broke up the long, continuous slope. This action dramatically reduced the speed and erosive power of running water. Instead of a torrent of water rushing down a 100-foot slope, it would flow down a much shorter section, collect on a terrace, and then flow down the next. This multi-level design also distributed the immense weight of the mound more evenly, reducing the pressure on the lower sections and preventing the sides from bulging or collapsing outwards. It was a simple yet incredibly effective way to ensure the long-term stability of these monumental structures. So we have this incredible engineering knowledge, layering different soils for internal drainage, capping the exterior with waterproof clay, and building terraces to buttress the slopes and manage runoff. The question then becomes, how did they know all this? There were no blueprints, no engineering textbooks, no universities. The knowledge was institutional, passed from one generation of builders to the next. It was a living tradition. A young Cahokian, learning the craft, wouldn't have read about it. They would have done it. They would have spent years, maybe decades, working in the borrow pits, feeling the different textures of the soil, learning to identify the right kind of clay just by its color and feel. They would have carried countless baskets of earth up the growing mounds, seeing firsthand how the layers were placed. The master builders, the architects and engineers of their day, would have directed the work, making decisions based on generations of accumulated wisdom. They would have understood the seasons, knowing the best time to dig and build to avoid the heavy rains. They would have observed which earlier mounds stood the test of time and which ones showed signs of slumping, learning from both successes and failures. This was empirical science, honed over centuries of trial and error. Imagine the master builder teaching an apprentice. See how this soil is dark and heavy? This is the clay we use for the water barrier. But this lighter, gritty soil, we place this above the clay to let the water escape. This knowledge was a sacred trust, the secret to their city's very foundation. The construction of a mound wasn't just a building project. It was a communal ritual, a transfer of knowledge, and a reaffirmation of their connection to the earth itself. This generational transfer of knowledge ensured that each new construction was not a fresh start, but an improvement on the last. They were constantly refining their techniques. Perhaps one mound experienced a slight slump after a particularly wet season. The next generation of builders would have noted that, analyzed the cause, and adjusted their methods accordingly, maybe using a thicker clay cap or a different ratio of sand in that specific area. The architecture of Cahokia is a testament to human ingenuity and the power of traditional ecological knowledge. It shows us that you don't need advanced technology to create something extraordinary and lasting. What you need is a deep, intimate understanding of your environment, a community willing to work together towards a common goal, and a culture that values and preserves the wisdom of its ancestors. The mounds of Cahokia are not just piles of earth. They are libraries of geological and engineering knowledge, built to last an eternity. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter. The engineering of these mounds is truly one of the wonders of the ancient world. If you found this fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter, where we'll explore the daily life of the people who called this incredible city home. See you next time. Ever wonder how ancient people built those massive earthworks without modern machinery? It wasn't with giant cranes or bulldozers. It was with something much more fundamental. Human power. One basket of soil at a time. Picture this. A long line of people, men, women, maybe even older children, spread out across the landscape. Each person digs into the earth, filling a woven basket with about 50 pounds of soil. They lift it, carry it to a designated spot, dump it, and then head back for another load. This process is repeated over and over, thousands upon thousands of times. It's a slow, grueling rhythm, a testament to incredible human endurance and cooperation. Archaeologists have found evidence of these baskets, or at least their impressions left in the soil. They've also found the very tools used for digging, often simple implements made from stone, shell, or wood. By studying the layers of earth, we can see how these mounds were built up, deposit by deposit. Each layer of dumped soil, called a basket load, is a single, tangible act of a person who lived centuries, or even millennia, ago. When you see a massive mound, you're not just looking at a pile of dirt. You're looking at the accumulated effort of countless individual journeys, a physical record of human labor on a monumental scale. It's humbling to imagine the sheer number of basket loads it took to create these structures, which could reach heights of over 70 feet and cover several acres. So, who were these workers, and how were they organized? This wasn't the work of a paid, professional construction crew as we'd think of it today. The evidence points to a community-wide labor system. This was an all-hands-on-deck situation, where entire communities, perhaps even multiple communities from a surrounding region, came together to contribute. Think of it like a massive, ancient barn raising, but on a scale that's hard to comprehend. This type of organization suggests a society with strong leadership, capable of planning and coordinating the efforts of thousands of people over long periods. Leaders would have needed to manage not just the physical labor, but also the logistics. Where do you get the soil? How do you ensure the mound is stable and built to the right shape? How do you feed and house all these people while they work? The construction wasn't a haphazard affair. The mounds often have very specific alignments, shapes, and internal structures, indicating a clear architectural plan. This level of coordination speaks to a sophisticated social and political structure, where leaders could command respect and mobilize the population for these shared, large-scale projects. It was a collective effort that bound the community together, reinforcing social ties and a shared identity. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds like it would take forever. And you'd be right. These monumental earthworks weren't built in a single season or even a few years. Construction was likely a cyclical, seasonal activity. The ancient builders were farmers, after all. Their lives were dictated by the agricultural calendar. They would have planted their crops in the spring and tended to them through the summer. The big construction projects would likely have taken place during the agricultural downtimes late fall, after the harvest, or in the winter when there was less to do in the fields. This meant that building was a generational commitment. Imagine a person working on the mound as a child, then as an adult, and then seeing their own children add their basket loads to the same structure. The construction could have spanned decades, or in some cases, even centuries. Each generation added their layer, contributing to a project that their ancestors started and their descendants would continue. This long-term perspective is a key part of what makes these sites so incredible. It wasn't about instant gratification. It was about building something lasting, something for the future, a legacy etched into the landscape itself. This seasonal pulse of activity, year after year, generation after generation, slowly but surely raised these magnificent structures from the ground up. So why? Why would thousands of people spend their precious free time, generation after generation, hauling baskets of dirt? The motivation likely wasn't purely practical. While some mounds were used for burials or as platforms for elite residencies, the sheer scale of the labor involved suggests something more profound was at play. The most compelling theory is that the work itself was a form of ceremony. It was a ritual, an act of devotion. Building the mounds was a way for the community to come together and express their shared beliefs, honor their ancestors, or connect with the cosmos. Think about the act of building as a performance. The rhythmic lines of people, the communal effort, the shared purpose, all of it could have been part of a grand public ceremony. Perhaps there were feasts, songs, and rituals associated with the construction. The process of building was just as important, if not more so, than the finished product. By participating, people weren't just moving dirt. They were actively renewing their social bonds, reinforcing their worldview, and creating a sacred landscape. The mounds became a physical embodiment of their society's spiritual and social order. They were monuments, not just to the dead or the powerful, but to the very active community itself. When we stand before these ancient earthworks today, it's easy to just see them as hills on the landscape. But now, hopefully, you see something more. You see the ghosts of countless individuals, each carrying a basket of soil. You see a highly organized society, capable of incredible feats of engineering and long-term planning. You see a community bound together by seasonal rhythms and a deep sense of shared purpose. And you see a powerful ceremonial act, where the very labor of building was a sacred ritual, connecting people to each other, to their ancestors, and to their world. These mounds are not just piles of earth. They are stories of labor, time, and belief, written on the land one basket load at a time. Thanks for watching, and if you found this journey into the past as fascinating as I do, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient city of Cahokia. In our last chapter, we marveled at the sheer scale of Monks Mound. Now, let us ascend to its summit and uncover its secrets as the ritual and political heart of this sprawling metropolis. Picture this. You've just climbed a massive staircase, 100 feet into the air, standing atop the fourth and final terrace. You're not just met with a breathtaking view of the city below, but you're standing before a colossal building. Archaeologists estimate this structure was immense, about 105 feet long and 48 feet wide, making it one of the largest wooden buildings ever constructed in prehistoric North America. Its walls, made of woven saplings, plastered with clay, likely soared 50 feet high, creating a truly imposing sight. So, what was this grand building? Was it a temple, a palace, or something else entirely? The truth is, it was likely all of these things combined. This wasn't just a building, it was the epicenter of Cahokian society, a place where politics, religion, and daily leadership intertwined. Let's imagine it as the residence of the paramount chief. This leader wasn't just a political figure. They were seen as a divine or semi-divine being, a direct link between the people and the cosmos, living atop the highest point in the city, literally closer to the heavens, reinforced this sacred status. From this vantage point, the chief could survey their entire domain. The bustling plazas, the surrounding mounds, the neatly arranged homes, and the sprawling farmlands. Every sunrise and sunset would have been a powerful, daily ritual affirming their connection to the sun, a central deity in Mississippian culture. This building was the seat of power. It is where the chief would have held council with subordinate leaders from Cahokia, as various districts and from allied towns scattered across the region. Imagine delegations arriving from hundreds of miles away, carrying tribute and seeking alliances. They would have undertaken the long climb up the mound, a journey designed to impress and intimidate. Reaching the summit, they'd enter this magnificent hall, a space filled with the symbols of the chief's authority perhaps, decorated with intricate carvings, painted textiles, and sacred objects. Here, critical decisions were made. Treaties were negotiated, trade routes were managed, and disputes were settled. The distribution of resources, like food from communal stores, would have been orchestrated from this central point, ensuring the city's survival and the chief's continued influence. The chief's ability to command the labor needed to build and maintain these mounds was, in itself, a testament to their immense power. Monks Mound wasn't just a monument. It was an ongoing project that unified the populace under a single leader. Beyond politics, this summit building was a primary stage for religious ceremonies. The chief, as the principal religious authority, would have presided over rituals tied to the agricultural calendar, celestial events, and community well-being. Think of major festivals, perhaps timed with the solstices or equinoxes, where the entire city's population would gather in the Grand Plaza below. They would look up to see the chief and their priests performing rites on the mound's summit. These ceremonies, visible to thousands, reinforced social cohesion and the cosmic order, with the chief at its very pinnacle. Archaeological finds on the summit give us clues about these activities. The discovery of a large circular post pit suggests the presence of a massive ceremonial post, perhaps similar to a sun pole used in later historical ceremonies. Fragments of decorated pottery, exotic materials like marine shell and copper from distant sources, and remnants of feasting all point to the Herodotus activities that took place here. These weren't everyday events. They were momentous occasions that defined Cahokian life. The mound itself was a powerful symbol. Its tiered structure may have represented the different levels of the cosmos in Mississippian belief. The world of the living was on the ground, the underworld was below, and the realm of the spirits and deities was above. By occupying the summit, the chief physically and spiritually inhabited this celestial plane, acting as the intermediary for their people. The very act of building the mound, layer by layer, over generations, was a communal act of faith, a physical manifestation of their society's structure and beliefs. The building on the summit wasn't permanent. However, evidence suggests it was rebuilt several times over Cahokia's history. Each reconstruction was a monumental undertaking, an opportunity for a new leader to literally build upon the legacy of their predecessors and reassert their own power. The old structure might have been ritually burned or dismantled before a new, larger one was erected, symbolizing renewal and the continuity of power. So when we look at Monks Mound, we shouldn't just see a massive pile of earth. We should see the White House, the National Cathedral, and the Supreme Court of its day, all rolled into one and placed on a man-made mountain. It was a dynamic, living center of governance and faith. From this elevated stage, the leaders of Cahokia managed a complex society, projected their power across a vast network, and guided their people through the rhythms of life and the mysteries of the cosmos. The summit of Monks Mound was, without a doubt, the most important piece of real estate in North America 1,000 years ago. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Cahokia's political and religious heart. In our next chapter, we'll descend from the mound and step into the Grand Plaza to understand its role as the city's communal stage. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss it. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on Cahokia. In this chapter, we're diving deep into the city's urban layout. Forget any ideas of a simple, random settlement. Cahokia was a meticulously planned metropolis, a testament to the incredible vision of its builders. At the heart of it all, of course, was Monks Mound, the colossal structure we've discussed before. But surrounding it was an intricate network that defined life in this ancient city. Imagine a grand central plaza stretching out before Monks Mound. This wasn't just an open field. It was a massive, leveled, and sacred space, larger than 35 American football fields. This was the stage for huge public ceremonies, political gatherings, games, and markets. It was the civic and spiritual core, designed to awe and unite the thousands of people who gathered there. But this Grand Plaza wasn't the only one. Cahokia featured a series of smaller plazas, each acting as the focal point for different parts of the city. Think of them as community squares, each with its own character and purpose. These plazas were bordered by smaller mounds, many of which served as platforms for the homes of the elite, important public buildings, or charnel houses for revered ancestors. The placement wasn't random. It created a hierarchy of spaces, with the most important areas closest to the central precinct. Radiating out from these plazas were the neighborhoods where the majority of Cahokia's residents lived. These weren't just scattered huts. Archaeological evidence points to organized residential zones, almost like ancient suburbs. Houses were typically rectangular, built using a technique called what, with wooden posts woven with branches and plastered with clay. They were arranged in orderly clusters, often around a shared courtyard or a local plaza, suggesting tight-knit communities, perhaps based on kinship or craft specialization. It is in these neighborhoods that the daily pulse of the city could be felt, the sounds of children playing, artisans at work, and families preparing meals. Connecting these various zones was a sophisticated system of causeways and avenues. These weren't just simple dirt paths. They were raised, leveled earthen roads that facilitated movement throughout the sprawling city. They guided processions, allowed for the efficient transport of goods, and reinforced the planned, grid-like nature of the urban core. Walking along one of these causeways would have been a carefully curated experience, with views of mounds and plazas strategically framed to emphasize the city's power and cosmic alignment. One of the most brilliant aspects of Cahokia's design was its water management system. The city was built in a floodplain, the American Bottom, which was fertile but prone to flooding. Tomanahitista Cahokians engineered a series of barrow pits, the very depressions created when they dug out earth to build the mounds. These pits weren't just construction scars. They were intentionally shaped and connected to form a network of ponds and channels. This system likely helped with drainage, provided a source of fish, and offered a ready supply of water for various daily needs. It shows an incredible understanding of their local environment and a long-term approach to urban sustainability. Furthermore, the entire city was enclosed, at least its central precinct, by a massive defensive palisade. This wasn't a simple fence. It was a 2-mile-long wall made of some 20,000 massive wooden logs, interspersed with watchtowers. This palisade was rebuilt several times, indicating a real and persistent need for defense. It clearly demarcated the sacred core of the city from the outside world, creating a secure and sanctified zone for the elite and the most important ceremonial activities. The very act of building and maintaining such a structure would have required immense organization and labor, a project that itself would have unified the population under a common goal. When you put all these pieces together, the grand plaza, the smaller community plazas, the platform mounds, the organized neighborhoods, the connecting causeways, the water management systems, and the formidable palisade, the picture that emerges is undeniable. Cahokia was not an accident of growth. It was a planned city. The layout reflects a complex social structure, with clear zoning that separated the sacred from the secular, the elite from the commoner. The alignment of mounds and plazas with celestial events, like solstices, shows that the city's very blueprint was embedded with cosmological significance. It was a living map of their universe, a place where earthly life was perfectly aligned with the heavens. The scale and complexity of Cahokia's urban planning rivaled that of many other ancient cities across the globe. It required advanced surveying skills, a massive, coordinated labor force, and a powerful central authority with the vision and the power to execute such a grand design. The city was a dynamic, thriving center of culture, religion, and commerce, all supported by an urban framework that was as intelligent as it was impressive. Thinking about Cahokia as a planned city completely changes our perspective. It challenges the old, outdated notions of pre-Columbian societies in North America. Here, on the banks of the Mississippi, 1,000 years ago, stood a city that was a masterpiece of urban design, a powerful symbol of human ingenuity and collective effort. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of Cahokia's layout. In our next chapter, we'll look at the people themselves, their daily lives, their work, and their beliefs. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss it. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through Cahokia. In this chapter, we step out from the shadow of Monks Mound and into the heart of the city, the Great Plaza. Imagine a vast, open space, stretching out south of the Great Mound. It's absolutely massive, covering nearly 50 acres. That's about the size of 45 football fields. This wasn't just empty land. It was the vibrant, pulsating center of public life for tens of thousands of people. Let's try to picture it. The ground beneath our feet is perfectly leveled and packed hard from centuries of use. It wasn't a quick job. Archaeologists believe the Cahokians undertook a massive engineering project to create this space, moving immense amounts of earth to flatten out the naturally uneven floodplain. This wasn't just for looks. It was a deliberate act of shaping the world, creating a stage for the community's most important moments. Standing here, you'd be surrounded by the city's most significant structures. To the north, Monks Mound dominates the skyline, a constant reminder of the chief's power and the sacred nature of this place. To the east and west, other large platform mounds frame the plaza. Their flat tops, likely holding the homes of elite families or important public buildings. The southern edge is marked by yet more mounds, completing the enclosure and creating a sense of a grand, ceremonial courtyard. This plaza was where Cahokia came alive. It was a space of constant motion and sound. Let's listen. Can you hear the distant thud of a drum setting a rhythm, or the cheers of a crowd gathered to watch a game? The plaza was the city's stadium. Here, they played chunky, a high-stakes game of skill and chance. A player would roll a smooth, disc-shaped stone across the packed earth, and others would throw spears, trying to land them as close as possible to where the stone would stop. It was more than just a sport. It was a spectacle, full of energy, competition, and probably a lot of betting. The roar of the spectators would have echoed across the entire city. But the plaza wasn't just for games. It was the community's gathering place. Imagine massive feasts held here to celebrate a successful harvest or an important celestial event. Hundreds, maybe thousands, of people would gather, sharing food cooked in huge pots. The air would be thick with the smell of roasting corn, squash, and venison. These feasts weren't just about eating. They were about reinforcing social bonds, sharing in the community's prosperity, and giving thanks to the spirits and ancestors who made it possible. It was also the city's marketplace. People from the surrounding farmlands, and even from distant regions, would bring their goods here to trade. Picture rows of stalls or blankets laid out on the ground, piled high with goods. You'd see farmers with baskets of maize, beans, and sunflowers. Hunters would trade hides and dried meat. Potters would display their beautifully crafted vessels, some simple and practical, others intricately decorated with symbolic designs. You might find traders from hundreds of miles away, offering rare materials like copper from the Great Lakes, seashells from the Gulf Coast, or mica from the Appalachian Mountains. The plaza would have been a kaleidoscope of languages, cultures, and commerce, a bustling hub connecting Cahokia to the wider world. The gentle murmur of bartering and conversation would fill the air, a constant hum of economic life. Above all, the Great Plaza was a sacred space. This is where the most important public rituals and ceremonies took place. Imagine a procession led by the paramount chief, emerging from his residence atop Monks Mound. He'd be adorned in breathtaking regalia cape of feathers, elaborate shell bead jewelry, and a copper headdress that glinted in the sun. He would descend the grand staircase and make his way across the plaza, followed by priests and other elites. Thousands of citizens would watch in awe as he performed rituals meant to ensure the cosmos remained in balance. The rains came on time, and the harvests were plentiful. These ceremonies were powerful displays of political and religious authority, uniting the people of Cahokia under a shared belief system and a common leader. The rhythmic chanting of priests, the burning of sacred herbs, like tobacco, and the solemnity of the crowd would create an unforgettable, deeply spiritual atmosphere. Life in the plaza followed a rhythm dictated by the sun and the seasons. At sunrise, the space would begin to stir with people heading to the markets or to their daily tasks. By midday, it would be a hive of activity, full of games, trade, and social interaction. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows from the mounds, the crowds would thin. The evenings might bring more ceremonies, with bonfires casting a flickering glow across the vast expanse. the stars shining brightly in the sky above. The Great Plaza wasn't just an architectural feature. It was the living, breathing heart of Cahokia. It was a space that was simultaneously a market, a stadium, a town square, and a cathedral. It was where the sacred and the secular met, where the elite and the commoner came together, and where the identity of Cahokia was forged and reaffirmed every single day. By understanding the life of the plaza, we get closer to understanding the people who built this incredible city and the world they inhabited. It was here, on this great, flat expanse of earth, that the story of a civilization was written. Thank you for joining me in this chapter. Next, we'll explore the role of the cosmos in Cahokian life, looking at how the sun, moon, and stars shape their city and their beliefs. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of Cahokia. In this chapter, we turn our eyes to the heavens, just as the ancient Cahokians did. Let's delve into one of the most fascinating structures at the site, Woodhenge. This isn't the stone circle in England, but a series of large, circular arrangements of massive wooden posts. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence for at least 5 of these circles, built over a period of about 200 years, each one larger and more complex than the last. So, what were they for? The answer lies in the stars. Woodhenge was, in essence, a massive solar calendar. It was a sophisticated astronomical observatory that allowed the Cahokians to track the sun's journey across the sky throughout the year. Imagine standing at the center of this huge circle of posts. From this specific vantage point, the rising sun would align perfectly with certain posts on key days. The most crucial alignment was with the post marking the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. This wasn't just an abstract observation. It marked the end of the old year and the promise of the sun's return, signaling the coming of longer days and the eventual start of a new agricultural cycle. Another key post would mark the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. The sun would rise directly over this post, heralding the peak of summer. And exactly halfway between these 2 solstice posts were others that marked the spring and fall equinoxes, the 2 days of the year when day and night are of equal length. These 4 points, the solstices and equinoxes, were the cornerstones of the Cahokian calendar. They were critical for timing agricultural activities, from planting to harvesting, ensuring the city's food supply and survival. But they were also deeply important for ritual and ceremony. These alignments weren't just practical, they were sacred. The predictable cycle of the sun was a powerful symbol of order in the cosmos, a divine rhythm that governed life on Earth. The leaders and priests of Cahokia likely used Woodhenge to schedule major festivals and religious ceremonies that coincided with these celestial events. By demonstrating their ability to predict these powerful moments, they reinforced their authority and their special connection to the supernatural world. It was a way of showing they understood the universe's blueprint and could mediate between the gods and the people. Now, let's bring Monks Mound back into the picture. Imagine the view from its summit, over 100 feet in the air. Looking west, you would have a perfect, unobstructed view of Woodhenge. It's highly probable that the elite, including the paramount chief who lived atop the mound, used this elevated platform as a primary viewing station. From this sacred perch, they could observe the solar alignments and preside over the ceremonies taking place below. The chief, silhouetted against the rising sun on a solstice morning, would have been a powerful, godlike figure. This visual connection between the ruler on the mound and the celestial calendar on the plaza below would have created an awe-inspiring spectacle, solidifying the social and religious hierarchy. Let's think about the engineering for a moment. To build Woodhenge, the Cahokians had to have a sophisticated understanding of geometry and observational astronomy. The posts, which were large red cedar logs, had to be placed with incredible precision. The circle itself had to be perfectly laid out, and the specific locations for the solstice and equinox posts required years, if not generations, of careful observation of the sun's movement. This wasn't guesswork. It was science, integrated seamlessly with spirituality. They didn't have telescopes or written mathematics as we know them, but they had a deep, practical knowledge of the sky's patterns. This astronomical knowledge likely wasn't limited to just the sun. While Woodhenge is primarily a solar observatory, It's possible the Cahokians also tracked the movements of the moon and certain bright stars or planets. The cycles of the moon are important for shorter-term timekeeping, and constellations often feature in the mythologies of indigenous American cultures. The entire landscape of Cahokia, from the mounds to the plazas to Woodhenge, may have been a terrestrial map of the cosmos, a sacred space where the earthly and celestial realms met. The discovery of Woodhenge was actually a bit of an accident. During salvage archaeology ahead of highway construction in the 1960s, archaeologists noticed strange patterns of post pits. At first, they were confused. It was Warren Whitry who pieced together the puzzle, proposing the astronomical alignment theory. His hypothesis was dramatically confirmed when he calculated the position of the winter solstice post and, upon excavation, found it exactly where he predicted it would be. It was a stunning revelation that completely changed our understanding of the intellectual and spiritual life of the Cahokians. So, Woodhenge reveals a society with a deep, intricate relationship with the cosmos. They were not just passive observers of the sky. They were active participants in its cycles. They encoded their understanding of time, seasons, and cosmic order into the very fabric of their city. The alignments of Woodhenge, viewed from the height of Monks Mound, were a powerful statement of knowledge, power, and faith. It shows us that Cahokia was a city built not just on earth, but in conversation with the heavens. This connection between the physical and the metaphysical, the practical and the sacred, is at the heart of what made Cahokia such a remarkable place. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe for our next chapter as we continue to uncover the secrets of this incredible lost city. Welcome back to our series on ancient civilizations. Today, we're journeying back in time, not to Rome or Egypt, but to North America, to a city that rivaled London in size during the 12th century. This is the story of Cahokia, a sprawling metropolis right in the heart of what is now the United States, near modern-day St. Louis. Cahokia wasn't just a city. It was the center of a vast and sophisticated world. At its peak, around 1100 AD, it was home to tens of thousands of people. Its landscape was dominated by enormous earthen mounds, the largest of which, Monks Mound, is bigger at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. But what truly made Cahokia a powerhouse wasn't just its size, but its incredible reach. Imagine a bustling marketplace 1,000 years ago in the middle of the North American continent. This was Cahokia. It was the hub of an immense trade network that stretched for thousands of miles. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a global trading hub, connecting diverse cultures and landscapes. The evidence for this is literally unearthed from the ground. Archaeologists have found artifacts at Cahokia that tell a story of incredible journeys. Let's start with copper. They've discovered beautifully crafted copper items, from intricate ornaments to tools. But here's the thing. The nearest major source of copper was over 600 miles away, in the Great Lakes region. This wasn't just a casual exchange. It was an organized effort to mine, process, and transport this valuable metal all the way down to the Mississippi Valley. This copper wasn't just for practical use. It was a status symbol, often used in ceremonial objects, and buried with the elite, signifying their power and connection. Then, let's travel south, all the way to the ocean. At Cahokia, excavators have found an abundance of marine shells, particularly large whelk shells from the Gulf of Mexico. These weren't just pretty souvenirs. Skilled artisans at Cahokia carved these shells into intricate pendants and beads called gorgets, often depicting mythological figures and cosmic scenes. These shell artifacts were highly prized and became a key part of Cahokian culture. The journey from the Gulf Coast was long and arduous, likely involving a combination of river travel and overland trekking, all to bring these sacred materials to the heart of the Mississippian world. Now, let's head east, into the Appalachian Mountains. From this region came another exotic material, mica. Mica is a silicate mineral that splits into thin, shimmering, almost transparent sheets. It was another luxury good used to create dazzling ornaments and cutouts, perhaps to adorn clothing or ceremonial spaces. Finding mica from hundreds of miles away in the Appalachian Highlands shows yet another spoke in Cahokia's vast trading wheel, connecting them with the peoples of the eastern mountains. And for our final stop, let's look west, towards the Rocky Mountains. Archaeologists have found obsidian, a type of volcanic glass that creates incredibly sharp edges. This obsidian has been traced to sources as far away as Wyoming. While not as common as copper or shells, its presence is a testament to the sheer scale of Cahokia's influence. It shows that their network wasn't just a north-south riverine system, but one that extended far into the western territories as well. So, we have copper from the north, shells from the south, mica from the east, and obsidian from the west. Cahokia was a magnet for valuable resources from every corner of the continent. But this trade was about so much more than just materials. It was a trade in ideas. The traders who traveled these long routes weren't just carrying goods, they were cultural ambassadors. They carried stories, beliefs, and artistic styles with them. As they moved from village to village, they shared new ways of thinking, new mythologies, and new ceremonial practices. This is how Cahokian influence spread so far and wide. We see this in what archaeologists call the Southeastern Ceremonial Complex. This is a shared artistic and religious style found across the American Southeast and Midwest. It includes recurring symbols like the birdman, the winged serpent, and the cross and circle motif. These powerful symbols, often found on those carved shell gorgets and embossed copper plates, originated or were popularized to Cahokia and then spread outwards through the trade network. When a trader brought a beautifully carved shell pendant from Cahokia to a village hundreds of miles away, they weren't just selling an object. They were introducing a piece of their cosmology, a symbol of their power, a new way of seeing the world. Local leaders in distant communities would adopt these symbols and styles to enhance their own prestige and connect themselves to the power and sophistication of the great city of Cahokia. This cultural exchange created a shared identity across a huge geographic area. People who may have never visited Cahokia themselves were nonetheless part of its world. They participated in similar ceremonies, understood the same symbols, and shared a common artistic language. The traders were the threads that wove this vast cultural tapestry together. They facilitated a flow of information that was just as important as the flow of goods. This is how art styles, architectural techniques for mound building, and religious ideas traveled. A particular pottery design popular in Cahokia might suddenly appear in a village in modern-day Georgia. A ceremonial practice from the Mississippi Valley might be adopted by a community in Arkansas. This wasn't a process of conquest, but one of influence and exchange, driven by the constant movement of people and goods along these ancient highways. The rise and fall of Cahokia is a complex story, and by the 14th century, the great city was largely abandoned, but its legacy endured. The trade routes it established and the cultural ideas it spread continued to shape the lives of Native American peoples for centuries. So, when we think of Cahokia, we shouldn't just picture its massive mounds. We should picture a vibrant, interconnected world. A world of traders navigating rivers and forests, carrying precious materials and even more precious ideas. A world where a city in the middle of a continent could touch the Great Lakes, the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Rocky Mountains, creating one of the most remarkable stories of trade and cultural exchange in human history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to ancient Cahokia. If you found this interesting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more dives into our shared past. See you next time. Welcome back to our series exploring the incredible world of the Mississippian civilization. In this chapter, we're diving deep into their art, symbolism, and sacred imagery. The Mississippians didn't leave behind a written language like the Maya or Egyptians, but they did leave a rich tapestry of symbols that offer a profound window into their beliefs and worldview. This symbolic language, found on shell gorget, pottery, copper plates, and even stone, is often called the Southeastern Ceremonial Complex. It's a shared artistic and religious tradition that connected diverse peoples across thousands of miles. So, let's decode some of the most powerful and recurring images in Mississippian art. First, we have the falcon warrior, or the birdman. This is a figure that appears again and again, a human form with wings and the eye markings of a peregrine falcon. The falcon is a predator that rules the skies, known for its speed, power, and incredible vision. For the Mississippians, this figure likely represented a warrior ethos, divine authority, and the ability to travel between the earthly world and the sky world. The birdman is often shown in combat or performing a ritual dance, holding a mace in one hand and a severed head in the other. This isn't just about earthly warfare, it's about a sacred struggle, maintaining cosmic balance. These weren't just decorations, they were statements of power, lineage, and spiritual might. A chief wearing a birdman emblem was signaling his connection to the divine forces of the sky. Next, let's talk about the serpent. Snakes and serpents are powerful symbols in cultures all over the world, and the Mississippians were no exception. But these weren't just ordinary snakes. We often see horned serpents, winged serpents, and underwater panthers with snake-like bodies. These creatures were masters of the underworld, the realm beneath the earth and water. The underworld wasn't necessarily a place of evil like a Western hell. Instead, it was a source of chaos, fertility, and immense power. It was a world of darkness, water, and transformation. The horned serpent, in particular, was a key figure, a being of immense power that lived in the deep. It was associated with rain, storms, and the unpredictable forces of nature. To control or appease such a being was to hold sway over life and death. This brings us to the Mississippian concept of the cosmos. Their universe was typically divided into 3 layers. At the top was the upper world, a realm of order, light, and celestial beings. This was the home of the sun, the moon, and powerful bird spirits like the thunderers. The sun was an especially important deity, representing light, life, and agricultural fertility. The upper world was a place of predictability and structure. Below that was the middle world, which is our world, the world of humans, plants, and animals. It was the plane where the forces of the upper and lower worlds met and interacted. Daily life, farming, hunting, and social order all took place here. The goal of human existence, especially for chiefs and spiritual leaders, was to maintain balance in this middle world, to mediate between the orderly forces of above and the chaotic forces from below. And finally, as we mentioned, there was the underworld, the realm beneath the earth and water. This was the world of the horned serpent, the underwater panther, and other powerful, often dangerous, beings. It was a source of chaos, but also of creativity, fertility, and sacred power. Springs, caves, and deep bodies of water were seen as portals to this realm. The balance between the upper world and the underworld was delicate, and human ritual was essential to keeping the cosmos in harmony. So, where does a monumental site like Cahokia and its largest earthwork, Monks Mound, fit into this spiritual landscape? Monks Mound wasn't just a big pile of dirt. It was a man-made mountain, an architectural representation of the Mississippian cosmos. Its massive, tiered structure was designed to connect the different realms. The broad, flat base of the mound was firmly planted in the middle world, the realm of the community. But Asitros, it reached toward the sky, toward the upper world. The summit of Monks Mound was the most sacred and exclusive space in the entire city. It was the highest point for hundreds of miles, a place literally closer to the gods of the upper world. A massive building stood on top, likely the residence of the paramount chief. This leader was not just a political ruler, he was a divine mediator. By living atop this man-made mountain, he was positioned at the Axis Mundi, the center of the world, where all 3 cosmic layers converged. From this vantage point, he could perform rituals to honor the sun, communicate with the spirits of the upper world, and oversee the well-being of his people below. The mound physically elevated him above ordinary people, reinforcing his sacred status and his unique ability to bridge the gap between the human and the divine. The layout of Cahokia itself reflects this cosmology. The city was aligned to astronomical events, particularly the solar solstices, and tying the very structure of the city to the orderly cycles of the upper world. The grand plaza in front of Monks Mound was a stage for massive public rituals, where the entire community could participate in ceremonies that reinforced the cosmic order. These gatherings would have been spectacular displays of art, dance, and symbolism, with leaders adorned in the regalia of the falcon warrior and other sacred beings. In essence, Monks Mound was the physical and spiritual heart of their universe, a place where art, architecture, and belief came together to create a powerful spiritual landscape. It was a tangible link between the earth and the heavens, a testament to their deep understanding of the cosmos. Thank you so much for joining me for this chapter. The symbolism of the Mississippians is a vast and fascinating topic, and we've only just scratched the surface. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter as we continue to unravel the mysteries of this incredible culture. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient world. Today, we're diving deep into Chapter 13, Social Life and Community Structure. We're going beyond the grand temples and monuments to understand the people who built these incredible cities. How did thousands, even tens of thousands, of people live together, work together, and thrive? Let's find out. At the very heart of this bustling society was the family. Not just the nuclear family we often think of today, but sprawling, interconnected kinship groups. Think of it as a web of relationships: parents, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all forming a tight-knit unit. This network was the primary safety net. It provided support, shared resources, and formed the fundamental building block of the entire community. Your family name wasn't just a label, it was your identity, your history, and your place in the world. Daily life for most people revolved around the timeless rhythms of agriculture. The farming schedule dictated everything. The year was divided by planting, tending, and harvesting. Early mornings would see families heading out to the fields together. This wasn't just work, it was a communal activity. Neighbors helped neighbors, sharing tools and labor, especially during the crucial harvest season. Everyone had a role. Men might handle the heavy plowing with oxen, while women were often responsible for sowing seeds, weeding, and managing the household garden, which provided essential vegetables and herbs. Children learned by doing, starting with simple tasks like scaring away birds, and gradually taking on more responsibility as they grew. The success of the harvest was a collective success, a testament to their ability to work in harmony with the land and with each other. But life wasn't all work. The community calendar was punctuated by vibrant feasts and sacred rituals. These events were essential for breaking the monotony of daily labor and reinforcing social bonds. Imagine the end of a successful harvest. The entire community would come together for a massive feast. There would be music, dancing, and an abundance of food and drink, a celebration of their collective hard work and a prayer of thanks to the gods. These weren't just parties. They were crucial social mechanisms. During these feasts, alliances were strengthened, disputes were settled, and young people might even find their future spouses. Rituals also marked key life events. Births were celebrated, marriages were formalized with specific ceremonies that united not just to people but to families, and deaths were mourned with rites that honored the ancestors and ensured the soulless safe passage to the afterlife. These shared experiences, from the joyous to the solemn, created a powerful sense of collective identity. They reminded everyone that they were part of something much larger than themselves. Within this society, gender roles were clearly defined, though often more complementary than strictly hierarchical. Men typically operated in the public sphere. They were the primary farmers in the large fields, the soldiers who defended the city, the craftsmen in specialized workshops, and the leaders who made political decisions in the community council. A man's status was often tied to his professional skill, his bravery in battle, or his wisdom in leadership. Women, on the other hand, were the masters of the domestic sphere. This was far from a minor role. The household was the engine of the economy. Women managed the family's food supplies, processed grains, wove textiles for clothing and trade, raised the children, and cared for the sick and elderly. They were the keepers of family traditions and the managers of the household economy, while men's work was more visible in the public eye. Women's work was the invisible foundation upon which the entire society was built. Their domains were different, but both were seen as essential for the survival and prosperity of the family and the community. So, how did this all come together? How did thousands of people coordinate their lives so effectively without the technology we have today? The answer lies in the power of kinship. The city wasn't an anonymous mass of individuals. It was a collection of interconnected kinship groups, or clans. These clans often lived in specific neighborhoods, worked in the same trades, and even had their own patron deities and ancestral shrines. The leaders of these kinship groups formed the city's council, making decisions that affected everyone. This structure allowed for large-scale coordination. If a new temple needed to be built or a defensive wall repaired, the council would assign the task to different clans. Each clan would then organize its members to contribute labor and resources. This decentralized yet interconnected system was incredibly resilient. It allowed the city to mobilize huge numbers of people for massive public works projects, to organize a defense against outside threats, and to ensure that social order was maintained. It was a complex and beautiful dance of cooperation, orchestrated not by a single, all-powerful ruler, but by the intricate web of family and community ties. It was this social fabric, woven from family, work, and ritual, that was the true secret to the city's enduring strength and success. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of ancient social life. It's fascinating to see how people created such complex and supportive communities. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what aspect of their daily life you found most interesting. See you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the incredible city of Cahokia. In this chapter, we are re-exploring something truly fascinating. How on earth did a city of tens of thousands manage its environment and resources, all without modern technology? Let's talk about the Cahokians' relationship with the land. When we think of ancient civilizations, it's easy to imagine them either living in perfect harmony with nature or just relentlessly exploiting it. The truth, as always, is far more complex. The Cahokians weren't just passive residents of the American bottom. They were active, intelligent managers of their environment. They had a profound understanding of the land, not just as a source of food and materials, but as a living system they could shape and influence. Their world was a mosaic of different landscapes: fertile floodplains for farming, dense upland forests, sprawling wetlands, and open prairies. Each of these zones offered unique resources, and the Cahokians knew exactly how to use them. They weren't just foragers. They were ecological engineers. One of their most powerful tools was fire. We often think of fire as a destructive force, but for many indigenous cultures, including the Cahokia, it was a vital tool for land management. They practiced what we now call controlled burning. By setting careful, low-intensity fires in the upland forests, they could clear out the underbrush. Why was this so important? Well, it did a few things. First, it made travel through the woods much easier. Second, it created a more open, park-like environment, which encouraged the growth of nut-bearing trees like hickory and oak. Nuts were a critical source of calories and protein, and managing the forest this way was like tending a massive, wild orchard. This open environment also attracted game animals like deer, making hunting more predictable and successful. So, fire wasn't about destruction. It was about cultivation and creating a more productive landscape. Beyond the uplands, their management extended to the vast forests that surrounded them. Wood was the lifeblood of Cahokia. Think about it. They needed wood for everything: building houses, constructing the massive palisade walls around the city's core, and of course a fuel for cooking fires and ceremonial bonfires. With a population that peaked at possibly 20,000 or more, the demand for wood was immense. Archaeological evidence shows that they primarily used specific types of trees. For construction, they favored strong rot-resistant woods like cedar and cypress, which they might have had to transport from miles away. For firewood, they used a mix of local hardwoods. This selective harvesting shows a deep knowledge of forestry. They knew which trees were best for which purpose. But this brings us to the challenges. Supporting a city the size of Cahokia put an enormous strain on the local environment. Let's do some quick math. Imagine each household needed a steady supply of firewood, day in and day out, for cooking and warmth. Now multiply that by thousands of households. Then add the colossal amount of lumber needed for construction projects, like the Tumalong Palisade that had to be rebuilt multiple times. Each time they rebuilt it, it required somewhere around 15 to 20,000 logs. That's a lot of trees. Over time, this intense demand led to deforestation in the areas immediately surrounding the city. Archaeologists can see this in the pollen record and in the types of wood found in later periods of the city's occupation. As nearby forests were cleared, people had to travel farther and farther to get the wood they needed. This would have increased labor costs and put a strain on the population. This deforestation had knock-on effects. Fewer trees meant more soil erosion. When heavy rains hit the now bare uplands, tons of sediment would wash down into the floodplain. This could have silted up creeks and backwater lakes, affecting fish populations and making canoe travel more difficult. It might have also led to more severe and unpredictable flooding in the areas where people were farming. So, the very actions they took to support their large population began to create new environmental problems. It's a classic story of success leading to new challenges. As Cahokia grew in power and population, its environmental footprint expanded. The very landscape they had so skillfully managed for centuries began to show signs of strain. The relationship between the Cahokians and their land was a dynamic one. They were brilliant managers who understood their ecosystem, but the sheer scale of their city eventually created pressures that may have been difficult, if not impossible, to sustain in the long run. This growing environmental stress is likely one of the many factors that contributed to Cahokia's eventual decline. It's a powerful reminder that even for the most sophisticated societies, there's a delicate balance between human needs and the capacity of the environment. The story of Cahokia's resource management is not just a tale of ancient history. It's a lesson in sustainability that still resonates with us today. Thanks so much for watching. Join us next time as we continue to unravel the mysteries of this incredible ancient city. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. See you then. Welcome, Bike History Explorers. Today, we're journeying back 1,000 years to the heart of North America's largest pre-Columbian city, Cahokia, and we're focusing on its crown jewel, the magnificent Monks Mound. We often see it as this single, massive structure, a testament to ancient engineering. But what if I told you it wasn't built in one go? What if, instead, it was a project spanning centuries, with layers of history, politics, and even natural disasters literally built into its very soil? Let's dig into the evidence and uncover the incredible story of Monks Mound through time. The story begins around the year 900 CE. The people of the Mississippian culture started with a vision. The initial construction wasn't the giant we see today. Instead, archaeologists believe it began as a much smaller platform, perhaps just a single tier. Think of it as laying the foundation for greatness. This first stage likely served as the base for an important building, maybe the home of a chief or a ceremonial space, setting the stage for everything that would follow. It was a declaration, a new center of power rising from the floodplain. But they didn't stop there. Over the next 50 to 100 years, something remarkable happened. The mound grew, and it grew fast. This period, known as the Big Bang of Cahokia, saw a massive expansion. Workers, using nothing but woven baskets and stone tools, moved millions of cubic feet of earth. They added new layers and entire new terraces, building upwards and outwards. This wasn't just construction. It was a society in overdrive. This rapid growth suggests a powerful, centralized leadership capable of organizing a huge labor force. Imagine thousands of people working together, carrying basket after basket of soil, each load a contribution to a monumental, shared goal. The mound was becoming a symbol of Cahokia's booming influence and spiritual power. As we move into the 1100s, the construction enters a new phase. It's less about rapid, explosive growth and more about refinement and additions. During this time, the iconic four-terraces that we can still visualize today really took shape. The Grand Plaza on the summit, where the largest building in the entire city once stood, was likely leveled and perfected. Smaller, secondary mounds may have been added to its terraces. This period suggests a mature, stable society, one that wasn't just building for the sake of size, but was carefully shaping its most sacred space. It's like they were adding the intricate details to their masterpiece, each addition full of meaning and purpose. But the story of Monks Mound isn't just about building up. It's also about dealing with setbacks. The mound is made of earth, and earth, especially in a river valley, is vulnerable. Archaeologists have found clear evidence of what they call slumping events. Massive sections of the mound, saturated by heavy rains, would have slid downwards. You can just imagine the crisis this would have caused. But the people of Cahokia didn't abandon their monument. Instead, they repaired it. They engineered solutions, like building massive retaining walls of timber and clay at the base to hold the earth back. These repairs tell a story of resilience, of a community dedicated to preserving their central monument against the forces of nature. Each repair is a testament to their ingenuity and their unwavering commitment to the mound. Around the year 1200, a significant and somewhat mysterious change occurred. A new layer of earth, a cap of dark, clay-rich soil, was added to several surfaces of the mound, including the first terrace. This wasn't just a simple repair. The distinct color and composition of this soil suggest it was a deliberate, symbolic act. Some archaeologists believe this capping event might signal a major political or religious shift. Was it the rise of a new dynasty? A new religious movement taking hold? Or perhaps a ritual to reconsecrate the mound after a period of turmoil? This layer is like a sealed chapter in the mound's history, hinting at a dramatic event that reshaped the society that built it. After this capping event, major construction seems to have slowed and eventually stopped. The final form of the mound was largely set. The focus shifted from large-scale building to maintenance and the use of the existing structure. The grand building on the summit was likely rebuilt several times over the years, reflecting the changing needs and leaders of the city. But the era of massive earth-moving was over. By the mid-1300s, the city of Cahokia itself was in decline, and its people began to disperse. Monks Mound, the silent witness to centuries of ambition, ceremony, and change, was gradually reclaimed by nature. So, when we look at Monks Mound, we're not just seeing a pile of dirt. We're looking at a dynamic, multi-generational project. It's an architectural timeline of the rise and fall of a great American civilization. From its humble beginnings, through its explosive growth, periods of refinement, disaster recovery, and mysterious transformations, the mound tells a complex story. It reflects the changing political tides, the spiritual beliefs, and the incredible resilience of the Mississippian people. It wasn't just built, it evolved, living and breathing with the city around it. What an incredible journey through time. The layers of Monks Mound show us that history is rarely a single, simple story. It's a process of building, rebuilding, and adapting. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into Cahokia's greatest monument. If you enjoyed this exploration, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more historical journeys, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the history of North America's first city. In our previous chapters, we marveled at the rise of Cahokia, its immense mounds, its sprawling plazas, and the vibrant culture that thrived along the Mississippi River. We saw a city that was a center for trade, religion, and politics for centuries. But, like all great cities of the ancient world, Cahokia's golden age eventually came to an end. Today, in our final chapter, we explore one of the most enduring mysteries in American archaeology. Why was Cahokia abandoned? The decline of Cahokia wasn't a single, dramatic event. There was no sudden catastrophe that wiped the city off the map overnight. Instead, it was a slow, gradual process, a fading out that unfolded over several generations. Beginning around the year 1200, people began to leave. The population dwindled, and by 1350, the once bustling metropolis was largely empty. The great plazas fell silent, and the mounds were left to the wind and the rain. For centuries, archaeologists and historians have pieced together clues to understand what pushed the people of Cahokia to walk away from their ancestral home. The answer, it seems, isn't one single thing, but a complex web of interconnected challenges. One of the most powerful forces at play was the environment itself. The very rivers and floodplains that gave Cahokia life also held the power to disrupt it. Archaeological evidence points to a series of major flood events in the 13th century. Imagine the Mississippi River and its tributaries overflowing their banks, not Houston Sabat repeatedly. These weren't just minor inconveniences. They were catastrophic floods that would have inundated farmland, destroyed crops, and washed away homes in the lower-lying parts of the city. For a society built on agriculture, particularly the cultivation of maize, this would have been devastating. A failed harvest meant food shortages, and repeated failures would have created chronic instability and hunger. Furthermore, the very success of Cahokia may have sown the seeds of its own environmental challenges. To build and sustain a city of this size required an enormous amount of resources. The most critical of these was wood. Tens of thousands of logs were needed to construct the defensive palisades, not to mention the countless homes, public buildings, and the constant need for firewood for cooking and heating. Over several centuries, this intensive logging would have led to widespread deforestation in the areas surrounding the city. Stripping the landscape of its forests has a cascade of negative effects. Without tree roots to hold the soil in place, erosion would have become a major problem, washing precious topsoil into the rivers. This not only degraded the farmland but also made the area even more susceptible to flash floods. Deforestation also would have driven away wildlife. Deer, a primary source of protein for the Cahokians and other game animals, would have become scarcer as their forest habitats disappeared. This created a dual problem: less food from farming due to floods and soil erosion, and less food from hunting due to habitat loss. The pressure on the city's resources would have been immense. As resources became scarcer and life grew more difficult, social and political tensions likely began to rise. A city as large and complex as Cahokia would have required a strong, centralized leadership to manage its affairs. Organics elabor and distribute food. But when the leaders could no longer guarantee prosperity and security, the people's faith in the system may have started to waver. Archaeological evidence from this period suggests increasing social strife. We see the rebuilding and strengthening of the massive defensive palisade around the central precinct, suggesting a growing fear of external attack or internal unrest. Some interpretations of skeletal remains from this era show signs of violence and nutritional stress, painting a picture of a society under pressure. It's possible that different factions within the city, or between Cahokia and its outlying settlements, began to compete for dwindling resources. The social fabric that held this diverse metropolis together may have started to unravel. People might have simply lost faith in the ruling elite and the religious ideologies that supported them. When the system no longer provides, people often choose to leave and seek their fortunes elsewhere. Layered on top of all these local pressures was a global phenomenon: climate change. The period of Cahokia's decline coincides with the beginning of what scientists call the Little Ice Age, a period of global cooling that lasted for several centuries, while its effects varied regionally. In the American bottom, it would have meant cooler temperatures and potentially less predictable rainfall patterns. For a culture so dependent on maize, a crop sensitive to temperature and moisture, these changes could have been disastrous. A shorter growing season or a series of droughts could have pushed their agricultural system to the breaking point. The combination of local environmental degradation and a broader climatic shift would have created a perfect storm of challenges. The land was simply becoming less capable of supporting such a large, concentrated population. So, what happened to the people of Cahokia? They didn't just vanish. They did what humans have always done when faced with insurmountable challenges. They adapted and moved on. The abandonment of Cahokia was a migration, not an extinction. Families and small groups likely packed up their belongings and dispersed across the landscape, looking for new, more sustainable places to live. They moved north, south, and east, carrying their traditions and beliefs with them. These descendant communities founded new, smaller settlements, adapting their way of life to their new environments. In fact, many modern Native American groups, including the Osage, Ponca, Omaha, and Ka, trace their ancestry back to the great city of Cahokia and the broader Mississippian culture. The legacy of Cahokia didn't die. It was transformed and carried forward in the traditions, languages, and stories of its descendants. The story of Cahokia's decline is a powerful reminder that even the greatest civilizations are not permanent. It shows us the intricate and delicate balance between a society, its environment, and the climate. It's a story of resilience and adaptation, of people making difficult choices in the face of immense pressure. They didn't fail. They simply moved on, beginning a new chapter in their history. The silent mounds they left behind are not a monument to a lost civilization, but a testament to a dynamic and enduring people whose legacy continues to this day. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the incredible story of Cahokia. I hope you've enjoyed exploring this forgotten chapter of American history as much as I have. If you found this series interesting, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical adventure. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to our journey through history. Today, in Chapter 17, we're jumping forward to the early 19th century, a time when the ancient mounds of North America began to capture the imagination of new settlers. This is the story of how one of the most significant sites received its modern name, and how the first attempts to understand it began, filled with both wonder and a great deal of misunderstanding. Our story starts in 1809. Europe was in turmoil, and a group of French Trappist monks, seeking refuge from the Napoleonic Wars, made their way to the United States. These monks, led by Father Urbain Gallet, were looking for a place to establish a new monastery, a place of solitude and self-sufficiency. Their journey led them down the Ohio River and up the Mississippi, eventually bringing them to a fertile floodplain in Illinois, directly across the river from the newly established town of St. Louis. And there, rising from the flat landscape, they encountered something astonishing. A massive, four-tiered earthen pyramid, the largest they had ever seen. This was the great central mound of a forgotten city. The monks, practical and devout, saw the land as a gift from God. They acquired a large tract of land from a man named Nicholas Gier, which included the giant mound and several smaller ones nearby. They settled at the foot of this immense structure, building their monastery and planting crops on its terraces. They lived a simple, austere life of prayer and hard labor. It was these monks, living and farming on this ancient monument, who inadvertently gave it the name it carries to this day. Although they only stayed for a few years, until about 1813, their presence left a permanent mark. Locals began referring to the Great Pyramid as Monks Mound, a name that stuck long after the monks themselves had departed. So while the name Monks Mound has nothing to do with its original builders, it tells a fascinating chapter of its more recent historia. Story of monks from a distant land finding temporary peace in the shadow of a forgotten civilization. After the monks left, the site fell back into relative obscurity for a time, but it had captured the attention of a new wave of American and European travelers, writers, and artists. One of the most important early observers was a man named Henry Marie In 1811, as a young lawyer and amateur naturalist, Brackenridge visited the area and was absolutely captivated by what he saw. He climbed to the top of Monks Mound and was overwhelmed by the scale of the ancient city. He wrote a detailed letter to former President Thomas Jefferson, describing the scene with incredible passion. He saw a stupendous pile of earth, and from its summit, he could count dozens of other mounds scattered across the plain. Brackenridge was one of the first to correctly recognize that this was unjust a random collection of hills. It was the ruins of a populous town. He argued forcefully against the popular, and frankly, racist theories of the time, which claimed that a mysterious lost race of mound builders, superior to Native Americans, had created these structures. Brackenridge insisted that the ancestors of the contemporary Native American tribes were the true architects of these magnificent earthworks. His writings, published in books and journals, were widely read and sparked immense public interest. They were the first truly detailed, analytical descriptions of the site, moving beyond simple travelers. Brackenridge's work was foundational, painting a picture of a vast, complex urban center that had been completely overlooked. Brackenridge's vivid descriptions inspired others. Artists began to visit, trying to capture the haunting beauty of the mounds. Early drawings and engravings started to circulate, giving people who couldn't visit a glimpse of these strange American pyramids. However, these early depictions were often romanticized and not entirely accurate. Some drawings exaggerated the height and steepness of the mounds, making them look more like Egyptian pyramids or mythical fortresses. Others added dramatic, stormy skies or imagined scenes of ancient rituals. These images, while not scientifically precise, played a crucial role in shaping the public's perception. They fueled a sense of mystery and wonder, but they also contributed to some of the wilder theories. People just couldn't believe that savage Indians, as they were often wrongly portrayed, could have organized the labor and engineering required for such monumental construction. This led to all sorts of fanciful ideas that the builders were Vikings, lost tribes of Israel, or survivors from Atlantis. These early drawings, in a way, were both a blessing and a curse. They brought attention to the site but also muddled the truth. The growing fascination, combined with the need to counter these fantastical theories, paved the way for the first real archaeological investigations. The era of pure speculation was slowly giving way to a more scientific approach. though the methods were still very crude by today's standards. One of the pioneers was a man named Thomas C., a naturalist who accompanied an expedition in 1819. While his investigations were brief, he took a more systematic approach than most. But the first major, albeit destructive, excavation was undertaken by a local landowner named Thomas T. Remy. In the 1830s, Remy, who owned a large portion of the site, including Monks Mound, began digging into some of the smaller mounds, driven by curiosity in the hope of finding treasure. While his methods were essentially treasure hunting, he did keep some notes and made some interesting discoveries. He found layers of pottery, tools, and shells, providing the first tangible evidence of the people who lived there. His most famous find was a small, intricately carved sandstone tablet, now known as the Ramy tablet, which depicted a birdman figure. This was a hugely significant find, offering a rare glimpse into the artistic and symbolic world of the mound builders. Another key figure was William McAdams, a local doctor and amateur archaeologist active in the late 1800s. McAdams spent decades exploring the mounds. He dug into many of them, collecting a vast number of artifacts. His work was also problematic by modern standards. He caused a lot of damage, and his record-keeping was inconsistent. However, his passion was undeniable. He amassed an enormous collection, which he displayed in his own museum, and wrote a book called Records of Ancient Races in the Mississippi Valley. McAdams was a showman, and he helped popularize the site. But his work also highlights the central conflict of 19th century archaeology, the tension between a genuine desire to understand the past and the destructive nature of the methods used. They were learning, but they were also destroying the very evidence they sought. They tunneled into the sides of mounds and dug pits from the top, disturbing the carefully constructed layers that hold the key to a site's history. For example, in 1882, agents from the newly formed Bureau of Ethnology, part of the Smithsonian Institution, sent a team to investigate, led by William H. Holmes. They used slightly more systematic methods, digging trenches and documenting the layers of soil or stratigraphy they encountered. This was a step in the right direction. Holmes was able to confirm that the mounds were not natural formations, but were deliberately constructed in stages over time. This was a crucial breakthrough, proving the immense effort and planning involved. So, the 19th century was a period of awakening. It began with monks seeking solitude and naming a monument. It continued with writers like Brackenridge who recognized it as a great city. It was visualized, often incorrectly, by romantic artists. And finally, it was dug into by amateur and early professional archaeologists who, despite their often destructive methods, began to pull the first real threads of evidence from the soil. They were dispelling the myths of lost races and slowly, painstakingly, beginning to build a true picture of the people of the Mississippi Valley. Their work, full of flaws and triumphs, laid the essential groundwork for all the discoveries that would follow in the 20th century. Thank you for joining us for this chapter. The story is just getting more exciting as we move closer to the modern era of archaeology. Make sure you resubscribed so you don't miss what comes next. See you in the next video. Welcome back to our journey through history. Today, we're diving into Chapter 18, where modern archaeology and incredible scientific discoveries are rewriting what we thought we knew about the past. Over the last century, our ability to see beneath the Earth's surface has transformed, turning dusty old sites into vibrant stories of ancient life. It's not just about digging anymore. It's about using cutting-edge science to unlock secrets that have been buried for thousands of years. One of the most game-changing techniques has been the analysis of soil cores. Imagine taking a long, thin straw and pushing it deep into a layered cake. When you pull it out, you can see every single layer. The frosting, the sponge, the filling. That's essentially what archaeologists do with soil. By drilling deep into the ground and extracting these cores, they can see distinct layers of construction. Each layer tells a story, a period of building, a phase of abandonment, a catastrophic fire, or a slow, gradual accumulation of dirt and debris. At one major site, this technique led to a stunning revelation. For years, historians debated what stood atop a prominent hill. Was it a simple lookout post? A ceremonial space? Soil cores painted a much grander picture. They showed multiple, thick, compacted layers of man-made materials, indicating not just one, but several phases of large-scale construction. This wasn't just a small structure. This was evidence of a massive, imposing building that once dominated the summit, a discovery that completely changed our understanding of the settlement's power and importance. It's like finding the foundations of a skyscraper where you only expected to find a log cabin. But how do you know where to even take these soil cores without digging up an entire landscape? That's where ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, comes in. Think of it as an ultrasound for the Earth. A device is wheeled across the ground, sending radio waves deep into the soil. These waves bounce off different materials in different ways. A buried stone wall will reflect the waves differently than soft earth, or a void like an empty tomb. The data is then translated into a 3D map of what lies beneath our feet, all without disturbing a single grain of sand. Using GPR, archaeologists have been able to map entire ancient cities that are still buried. They can see the outlines of streets, the foundations of houses, the shape of public squares, and even the shadows of long-gone gardens. This technology allows researchers to be incredibly precise, targeting their excavations on areas they know will yield important information. It's a revolution in efficiency and preservation, allowing us to learn so much while leaving large parts of the site untouched for future generations with even more advanced technology. It's like having X-ray vision for history. Of course, the most exciting part for many is the artifacts themselves. And with these advanced techniques, we're not just finding random pottery shards. We're strategically uncovering objects from specific high-status areas. In recent decades, excavations guided by GPR and soil analyses have led archaeologists directly to what appeared to be elite administrative buildings or the homes of the wealthy. Inside, they've found artifacts that speak of a life of luxury and power. Imagine discovering intricately carved ivory decorations, fragments of gold leaf that once covered furniture, and imported pottery from distant lands, proving extensive trade networks. These aren't just pretty objects. They are puzzle pieces that help us reconstruct the social hierarchy of an ancient society. They tell us who held power, what they valued, and how they projected their status. Finding a simple clay pot tells you something about daily life, but finding a delicate, foreign-made glass bead in the ruins of a massive building tells you about international politics, wealth, and the lives of the 1% ancient style. What's truly amazing is that these discoveries are constantly being re-examined. An artifact found 50 years ago can be analyzed today with new scientific methods that didn't exist back then. For example, chemical analysis of pottery residue can now tell us exactly what people were cooking and eating. Isotope analysis of human remains can reveal where a person grew up, what their diet was like, and even if they undertook long migrations during their lifetime. DNA analysis both of human and animal remains is opening up entirely new chapters about ancestry, disease, and the domestication of species. Modern science is in a constant dialogue with the past. It allows us to ask more detailed, more specific questions than ever before. It's not just about what happened, but how and why it happened. Every new technological leap gives us a new lens to look at old evidence, and often it reveals something completely unexpected. The story of the past is not set in stone. It's a living document that we are continuously refining, updating, and bringing into sharper focus. The age of discovery is far from over. In many ways, it's just beginning. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of modern archaeology. The way we uncover history is as fascinating as history itself. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to explore together. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on the wonders of ancient North America. Today, we're retaking a journey to a place where the past and present meet in a truly breathtaking way. Monks Mound at the Cahokia Mounds State Historic Site. If you stand here today, you're not just in a park. You're standing in the heart of what was once the largest and most influential city north of Mexico. The air is peaceful, filled with the sounds of nature, but the sheer scale of the landscape whispers stories of a vibrant, powerful civilization. Imagine this place 1,000 years ago, a bustling metropolis with thousands of homes, grand plazas, and this colossal structure, Monks Mound, at its very center. This wasn't just a pile of dirt. It was the political and religious heart of the city, a testament to the ingenuity and organization of the Mississippian people. Today, it stands as a silent giant, a four-terraced, earthen structure larger at its base than the Great Pyramid of Giza. As you walk the grounds, you can almost feel the echoes of the past beneath your feet. The site is now a serene archaeological park, a green oasis where history slumbers. Visitors can stroll along pathways, marvel at the other mounds scattered across the landscape, and feel a profound connection to the people who built this incredible place. It's a place for reflection, for learning, and for simply being in awe of human history. But preserving a 1,000-year-old earthen monument in the modern world is a monumental challenge in itself. Monks Mound is in a constant battle with the forces of nature. Erosion is the primary enemy. Rainwater, over centuries, has carved gullies into its sides, washing away precious layers of soil and, with them, the archaeological record. You might see areas covered with tarps or modern terracing. These are ongoing efforts to stabilize the mound and prevent further damage. Think of it like trying to protect a giant sand castle from the tide. Every storm poses a threat. Another major issue is slumping. The sheer weight of the mound, combined with water saturation deep within its core, can cause large sections of the earth to slide or slump downwards. In recent decades, significant slumps have occurred, requiring emergency stabilization work. Archaeologists and engineers have to be incredibly careful. Any intervention to fix the structure must be done without disturbing the priceless historical information buried within. It's a delicate balancing act between preservation and conservation. They use advanced techniques like ground-penetrating radar to understand what is happening inside the mound before they ever break ground. It's a constant, resource-intensive effort to ensure this world treasure survives for future generations. So what's it like to visit Monks Mound today? It's an unforgettable experience. The journey often begins at the excellent interpretive center, which provides a fantastic overview of the Mississippian culture and the history of Cahokia. You'll see artifacts, detailed dioramas, and an award-winning film that brings the ancient city to life. It's the perfect way to get context before you step out onto the historical grounds. Once, outside. The main event for many is the climb to the top of Monks Mound. There's a modern staircase of 154 steps that takes you to the summit, 100 feet above the surrounding plain. As you ascend, the view just gets more and more spectacular. From the top, you get a 360-degree panorama of the entire American bottom floodplain. You can see the other mounds, the footprint of the ancient Grand Plaza, and on a clear day, you can even see the modern skyline of St. Louis and its iconic gateway arch in the distance. It's a powerful moment. You're standing where the city's paramount chief once stood, looking out over his domain. You can see the layout of the city, trace the paths of ancient roads, and truly appreciate the scale of what the Mississippian people accomplished. It's both humbling and inspiring. It connects you directly to the history in a way that reading a book or looking at pictures simply couldn't. Cahokia is more than just a tourist destination. It's a vital center for education and research. The site hosts a wide array of educational programs for all ages. School groups come here for field trips, learning firsthand about archaeology and indigenous history. There are summer camps, workshops, and public lectures by leading archaeologists and historians. These programs are crucial for fostering a deeper understanding and appreciation for the site. They transform it from a static monument into a living classroom, where the story of the Mississippian people is constantly being told and discovered. For researchers, Cahokia is a treasure trove. Archaeologists from around the world continue to study the site, using new technologies to uncover secrets without extensive excavation. These ongoing studies help us piece together a more complete picture of daily life, trade networks, religious practices, and the eventual decline of this great city. Every new discovery adds another chapter to the story of Cahokia, a story that is far from finished. The educational outreach ensures that this knowledge is shared, inspiring the next generation of historians, archaeologists, and curious minds. Ultimately, the importance of protecting a site like Monks Mound goes far beyond its archaeological value. This is sacred ground. It is a direct link to the heritage and ancestors of numerous modern indigenous nations, including the Osage, Kaw, and Quapaw, among others. For them, Cahokia is not a lost city. It is a place of origin, a part of their living cultural identity. Preserving this site is an act of respect for their history, their ancestors, and their continuing traditions. It's about recognizing that this landscape holds deep spiritual and cultural significance. When we talk about preservation, we're not just talking about protecting an artifact. We're talking about protecting a legacy. The stories, the knowledge, and the spirit of the people who built Monks Mound are woven into the very earth of this place. By ensuring its survival, we honor their achievements and acknowledge the rich, complex history of the indigenous peoples of this continent. It reminds us that American history didn't begin in 1492. It has roots that go back thousands of years, right here in the heartland. Visiting and supporting sites like Cahokia Mounds is a way for all of us to participate in the vital work of preserving this irreplaceable heritage. Thank you so much for joining me on this tour of Monks Mound today. It's a place that truly captures the imagination and deepens our understanding of the past. If you ever have the chance to visit, I highly recommend it. What ancient site fascinates you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more journeys into history. We'll see you next time. As our journey through the day draws to a close, let's find a quiet space to settle in. Allow your body to relax, your breath to deepen, and your mind to drift back with me to a place of ancient wonder. Imagine yourself standing at the base of a colossal structure, a man-made mountain of earth reaching for the heavens. This is Monks Mound, the heart of the ancient city of Cahokia. The air is still and cool, filled with the gentle hum of the night. The sun has long since set, leaving behind a deep indigo sky, now awash with a sea of glittering stars. You are standing on sacred ground, a place where history is not just written in books, but is held within the very soil beneath your feet. Feel the soft grass under your palms, the slight dampness of the evening dew. As you look up, the sheer scale of the mound is overwhelming. It's not just a hill, it's a monument, a testament to human ingenuity, cooperation, and faith. Each handful of earth was carried here, basket by basket, over centuries. Imagine the hands that carried that earth, hands of farmers, of artisans, of priests, and chiefs, hands young and old, strong and tired, all working together with a shared purpose. What drove them? What dreams did they hold in their hearts as they built this city toward the sky? The mound before you is not just dirt and clay. It's a vessel of human effort, a repository of countless stories, hopes, and prayers. Close your eyes for a moment and listen. Beyond the sounds of the modern world, can you hear the echoes of the past? The soft whisper of the wind carries with it the faint, rhythmic beat of a drum. It's a sound that once pulsed through this valley, a heartbeat for a civilization of thousands. You can almost hear the distant murmur of voices, speaking a language lost to time, sharing stories, laughter, and daily concerns. Perhaps the scent of wood smoke drifts on the breeze, rising from countless hearths in the homes that once surrounded this great mound. Imagine the warm glow of fires dotting the landscape, each one a small beacon of family and community in the vast darkness. These were people just like us, with families to care for, joys to celebrate, and sorrows to bear. In your mind's eye, picture the city in its prime. See the sprawling plaza stretching out from the base of the mound, a vast, open space cleared for gatherings, markets, and sacred rituals. Imagine it teeming with life during the day, a vibrant tapestry of human activity. But now, in the quiet of our shared night, it is empty and serene. The moonlight casts long, soft shadows across the plaza, transforming it into a mystical, otherworldly stage. This was a place where the earthly and the divine were believed to meet. It was here that leaders would have stood, connecting their people with the cosmos, interpreting the movements of the sun, moon, and stars that now shine so brilliantly above us. Let your gaze travel up the terraced slopes of Monks Mound. At its summit, a great temple or the residence of a paramount chief once stood. Imagine the view from up there. From that vantage point, you could see the entire city laid out below, a network of smaller mounds, wooden homes, and protective stockades. You could see the lifeblood of the city, the rivers and creeks snaking through the fertile floodplain, the very reason a city could thrive here. The leader who lived atop this mound would have looked out at this same night sky, perhaps contemplating the future of their people, feeling the immense weight of responsibility, and seeking guidance from the patterns in the stars. The sky we see now is the same sky they saw then, a timeless bridge connecting our moment to theirs. Think about the human stories embedded in this landscape. A child is born in a small, thatched roof house near the river. A young couple meets in the bustling marketplace, their lives just beginning to intertwine. An artisan spends weeks meticulously crafting a piece of pottery, her skill and creativity poured into the clay. A farmer watches the sky, praying for rain to nurture his crops of corn, squash, and beans. A shaman prepares for a ceremony, his chants and songs intended to heal the sick or ensure a successful hunt. These are not grand, epic tales, but the small, intimate moments that make up the fabric of any society. These individual lives, thousands upon thousands of them, are the true foundation of Cahokia. Their energy, their spirit, is still present here. As you stand beneath the stars, feel a sense of connection to that spirit. The ground you are on is a cemetery, a ceremonial center, and a home, all in one. Generations were born, lived, and laid to rest here. They looked up at the same constellation of Orion, the same soft glow of the Milky Way. They felt the same awe and wonder at the vastness of the universe. In this shared experience, the centuries that separate us seem too thin to become almost transparent. We are part of a long, unbroken chain of human experience, of looking up at the night sky and asking the big questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our purpose? The silence of Cahokia at night is profound. It's a silence that isn't empty, but full of meaning. It holds the memory of a civilization that rose to incredible heights, and then, for reasons we still debate, faded away. The people dispersed, their great cities slowly reclaimed, by the very nature they had worked so hard to shape, but they did not vanish without a trace. They left behind this mound, these earthworks, these silent monuments that continue to speak to us. They whisper a story of resilience, of community, of a deep spiritual connection to the land and the cosmos. They remind us that all civilizations, including our own, are part of a larger cycle of growth, change, and eventual transformation. Let the tranquility of this scene wash over you. Let the enormity of Monks Mound put your own daily worries into perspective. The problems that seem so large today are but a fleeting moment in the grand sweep of human history. The people of Cahokia faced their own challenges, their own fears, and their own triumphs. And now, they rest. Their great work is done. The mound stands as a quiet guardian, a silent witness to the passing of ages. It invites us not to solve its mysteries, but simply to be present with them, to feel the weight and the wonder of its existence. As you prepare for sleep, carry this image with you, the image of a great earthen mound beneath a sky full of stars, the quiet echo of ancient songs, and the distant glow of ceremonial fires. Feel the deep peace of this place, the sense of connection to a story so much larger than our own. Allow the steady, silent presence of Monks Mound to ground you, to bring you a sense of calm and stability. The earth that holds these ancient stories is the same earth that supports you now. The sky that watched over them is the same sky that watches over you as you sleep. You are connected to it all. Let your breath be your anchor, slow and steady, like the gentle rhythm of time itself. With each exhale, release the day. Let go of any lingering thoughts, any tensions in your body. Imagine them dissolving into the vast, quiet landscape of Cahokia. At night, with each inhale, breathe in the peace and the stillness of this sacred place. Breathe in the ancient wisdom of the earth, the timeless beauty of the stars. Know that you are part of this long, incredible human story. Rest now in the quiet company of 1,000 years of history, beneath the watchful eyes of 1,000,000 stars. Sleep well.